because he may have something to say about all of that. Theo, Starmer coming in for a good shellacking this morning from all of our listeners, all of our viewers, not least because of the farmers' situation, but also because suddenly winter has hit the country for the first time, and people are going to be thinking about those pensioners who, up until this year, would have had an extra 300 quid to pay to put their heating on.
Let's start with the farmers. It's snowing here, by the way, in East London.
Right.
It's interesting. Rachel Reeves coming out today and saying that the money is needed for the NHS, and that's why she's going to stick with this 20% inheritance tax on farming estates. If I text you tomorrow afternoon at 1:20 and I say happy Wednesday afternoon, Mike, that intervening time of 1 day and 5 hours, that will be the amount of time this tax rise will have paid for the NHS.
Yes.
1 day and 5 hours.
Ridiculous.
That's all it pays for.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually make any significant material difference to funding the National Health Service, because it only raises about £500 million. But what it does do, and this is the argument, I think we're going to see significant protests of up to, 40,000 farmers on the streets of
And a lot of
London
people who are
today.
not farmers who are coming in support of them as well.
Yeah. But what it does do is it means that farmers can't pass their work on as a family business. It just takes that, it pulls the rug from underneath them. But the other thing, and this is why your listeners should be particularly concerned, is what Colin Rayner, that farmer, just told you, is that we're going to see food shortages as a result. And food shortages, Mike, that's going to mean higher prices when you go to the supermarket. That's going to lead to inflation. Yeah. And then, of course, we're not going to see interest rates come down, and that's going to have the effect of people paying more money for their mortgages. Rents are going to stay high, and you're going to have less money in your back pocket. This idea that somehow you're going to raise £500 million by just changing a small anomaly in the inheritance tax system, removing it, which exists for the very reason that these farms can be passed on. It seems like economic madness.
It does seem like it. And again, a complete sort of tone deafness from the government. Rachel Reeves, when she has an opportunity to kind of lay out the reasoning why they're doing it, just kind of, again, repeats the fact, it's not going to affect very many farmers. The NFU telling me this morning they're deliberately using wrong figures. The Treasury are deliberately overestimating the number of farmers in the country to make it look like this is affecting a very much smaller percentage than it actually is affecting. The National Farmers Union is saying this will affect upwards of 60 to 65% of farms in this country.
Yes, and the reason is, and what I think the Treasury is doing, is it's saying it's only looking at the numbers where you have landowners which would have to sell chunks of their land in order to pay the inheritance tax bill when they get it.
Yes.
But in actual fact, what you have is you have tenant farmers on those plots of land, farming those lands on the behalf of the farmers who own the larger estates. And they're effectively going to see they're going to receive notice when the farmer who owns the whole estate, the actual land of the whole estate, which they rent off them, die. They're going to see their ability to continue farming completely removed, because the land on which they farm is going to be sold, and they're probably not going to be able to continue to farm that particular land. So the National Farmers Union, of course, warning that actually many more farmers are going to be affected. But it's going to be, if it leads to shortages at the supermarket of food, then that's going to be a big problem. The other argument I think that goes against the government on this is they've argued a huge amount. The reason for we need onshore wind farms is for energy security. We also need food security. Yeah. And there's another point that I think was very interesting that Colin Rayner raised, which is actually we don't want to have to rely on imported food into this country. The world is a volatile place right now. We know that there is a escalation of the conflict between Russia's invasion of Ukraine by that decision by Joe Biden to allow the Ukrainians to start firing long-range missiles onto Russian territory. This is not the world is not at its safest. It is at its most dangerous point since the Second World War, and that's a view held in government. This is not the time to do anything that would damage our food independence, just as we don't want to damage our energy independence. We want to be ensuring that we, if push comes to shove, we can survive with the food produced in this country.
But also the damage being done to this government by themselves, effectively. You know, Steve Reid came out the other day and said something stupid, that they were going to side with the EU rather than side with Trump if there was an issue about trade. We've got, you know, Rachel Reeves in trouble because everything she seems to have said about her past is a lie. We've got Keir Starmer being accused by farmers and the NFU, effectively, of spending an hour lying to them last year. He said he wouldn't put taxes up. You know, the sort of the optics on everything the government is doing right now could not be worse.
Yeah, we had freebie gates over the course of the summer, which was a disaster for the government. They got themselves into all sorts of tangles like that. And then we had this budget that was supposed to be, quote unquote, a reset, where Rachel Reeves, okay, they were going to be painful decisions, but Rachel Reeves was hopefully going to be able to, you know, set the course, the financial course, the fiscal course for 5 years, and actually get the government onto a better footing after a pretty difficult summer. But rather than do that, they've caused all sorts of problems. Firstly, well, there are two things, aren't there? There was this decision around inheritance tax for farmers, and then also, you know, where the supermarkets and employers and businesses are getting into a huge tangle and finding it very difficult. This decision to put up national insurance contributions, raising £25 billion for the treasury, but that's going to have a huge knock-on effect in terms of prices, inflationary pressures that businesses are facing, job losses potentially as well. You know, we only had last week, we only had growth of 0.1%. Yeah. If growth goes into negative, then we're into, you know, string 3 months together and we're into a recession. And a recession is precisely what this government, you know, said wouldn't happen when Labour were in opposition. They said, trust us with the economy. We can handle the economy. We can make the safe decisions. We can manage the public finances well. But there's a real danger with whether you stack it up with the farmers and then the business, you know, taxes on businesses, national minimum wage going up. You can see why they've done it politically, but again, it can cause inflation. You know, it all adds up to potentially a very damaging narrative.
Of course. I mean, you know, aside from the farmers' action today, look at the front page of the Times, where they've got a story that says Britain's biggest retailers have told Rachel Reeves that shops will close, jobs will be lost and prices will have to rise because of her decision to raise national insurance in the budget. And these are not, you know, Mickey Mouse companies. We're talking about Tesco's, Marks & Spencer's, Sainsbury's, Asda's, Next. They've all written to the Chancellor warning that the sheer scale of the new costs on business means that job losses are inevitable. So, brilliant. So they've got growth down to practically zero. They're going to put unemployment up. They've taken money away from pensioners who are going to be unable to heat their homes this winter and will become very ill and will probably die as a result. Yeah. They're attacking farmers, the literally the meat and drink of our society. What the hell are they playing at?
I think this is what I think has happened. I think they're too green. And I think what happens is, and I was speaking to a friend about this over a cup of coffee, who worked in government under the Conservatives. And what happens, right, is the officials in the Treasury have a huge spreadsheet, and they don't go away and think of something new or innovative. What they do is they keep on presenting the spreadsheet. And on this spreadsheet, every time you've got, shall we remove the winter fuel allowance? Shall we get rid of this anomaly in inheritance tax? So they were laughing to me. They were saying, when I was in the Treasury, when I was in number 10, they tried this one on me. And we were like, no way are we going anywhere near that. We know, we know, we speak to the NFU, we know what the problems are. Take that away and cross it out and don't come back with it. But the mandarins in the Treasury like to come up with these ideas and present these ideas and say, well, how about this, Minister? Isn't this a good idea? We could raise £500 million here, we could save £500 million there. And what you need is you need really sharp political aids to go, actually, no, you're going to see pensioners freeze in their beds because they're not going to have enough. They're not going to have the money and the wherewithal to heat their homes. No, because you're going to have to see farmers sell off part of their land, and we need farmers to thrive, not just survive, but thrive in this country. You need really sharp political operators with strong antennae to say, you know what? Take that spreadsheet and go and find me something else. Don't come back with the same answer again. And they're just a little bit too green, I think, in the Treasury to say, OK, yes, that sounds like a good idea. That sounds like a good idea, Permanent Secretary. That sounds like a good idea, OBR. Shall we do that as well?
Yeah. In other words, they don't know what they're doing, I think is what you mean. Theo, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Theo Usherwood, political commentator there on the terrible state of this government.